There's this idea that government and people and business and investing and banking and everything really works the same everywhere. I remember growing up in the United States and being 9 years old and looking at the big world map that we hung on my wall and thinking to myself, I'd love to go to all these places. But what I never realized until I started doing it several years later was that people in those places are all different. And it sounds like something that we should all know. It sounds like, yeah, of course, people are different, cultures are different. I mean, politics is based on that, this idea of us and then them, like they're different. They have a different religion. They do things differently. They have different rules. But when I am working with people to actually expose them to all these different opportunities around the world, to becoming nomad capitalists, what I found is the same thing that I went through so many years ago, which is that we're all expecting deep down, as much as we think in the head, like, yeah, people are different, we're all expecting deep down when we go to another country, why aren't they doing this the way I'm used to? One of the most common questions is, Andrew, you talk about second passports. Why do I want to be subject to more countries? Why do I want to be, a slave, some people say, to 2 countries or 3 countries? Like, if one has certain obligations, why have obligations times 2 or 3? And the answer is that every country treats you differently. I mean, if you're a U.S. citizen, that's basically, for all intents and purposes, the only citizenship you can hold that's going to tax you no matter where you live. So that piece alone is just one thing to think about. But there are so many other elements to where governments and people are different. One of the big things that I like to look at when I go to a new country is how easy is it just to get in? Okay. When I go to Serbia, I was in Serbia recently, arrived at the Belgrade airport, and I walked up with my passport. And the girl behind the desk is on her phone. She's talking to the person next to her. They're having a chat. And she just so excited, yeah, okay, stamp, here you go. Then I looked behind me. The guy who was sitting next to me on the plane was from Canada. And I said, I think that she's just going to look at it and throw it back at him. And that's what happened. She's like, yeah, Canadian, great. In you go. Meanwhile, you go to the United States, you go to other Western countries, they ask you a million questions. That's just the first example. That's the first thing that I've realized that's a real world example of how easy is it to get into a country, how open is a country. And then once you're in, what are the things that are different? We have a lot of men who watch our channel who may be living in a Western country, and some of them have commented that they are disillusioned with the idea of dating and marriage in their country. And then they say, okay, well, that's probably the same everywhere. And yes, people to a certain extent are the same everywhere. But divorce laws are different in different places. The culture is different in other places. I remember driving with some people that I was working with, and we had someone from my team from Eastern Europe, and they were asking, hey, what are women like in your country? What's the rules on family and feminism and all that? And she exploded at them, not at them, but I think it's crap, we're not equal, men and women are not equal. And I'm not taking a dog in the fight one way or the other, but it's this idea that everyone thinks like an American and that every law is like the American law is silliness. The same thing applies when you go and you want to invest in countries. I've taken people around to, let's say, Georgia, and we'll walk around looking at properties. And some of these properties are old Soviet properties. They're cheap. There's a nail hanging on the wall or something, and people will come from the U.S. and be like, "What if someone stabs themselves to death with that nail that's sticking out of the wall an inch? What? Is there a tort insurance here? What can we?" It's I think there's been 0 examples of someone suing and winning because they got stabbed by a nail. I mean, you walk around outside the streets. And any of the places where I live, you just, you'll walk by and there'll be a little pothole or something in the sidewalk, and they don't have 7 cones around it, an assigned danger. It's listen, we assume people are smart enough, they can figure it out. And so when you go to these other countries, you kind of have to realize, what do they do differently, right? What is their approach for letting people in? How business friendly are they? That's obviously what we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist, but When you go to buy that piece of property in Georgia, the seller is going to operate differently. They're going to negotiate differently. They're going to expect you to let them live there for free for 30 days after the deal's closed, because that's just how it works locally. But then when you own that property, you're not going to pay any property tax, because that's different. You are not going to be taking out some complicated insurance policy, in case a meteorite hits your property. That's just not how it works. And I always enjoy seeing people learn this. I had a friend who moved recently from California to Nevada, and she ran a business in California. She had Payroll, and it was just a mess. I mean, the franchise tax board, all those people in California, it's a disaster. It's insane. And she moved to Nevada, and she said, they had me on the payroll list. I was supposed to be paying payroll even though I had no employees, and I didn't file a report on time, so I called them to beg for mercy. And she's like, I was amazed I even got them on the phone. But she says, the guy on the other side of the phone, he just laughed and said, well, you don't have any payroll. How can we penalize you? Don't worry, I'll just mark it as, I'll make the change and it'll be taken care of. Don't worry about it. And she says, I really realized that, people, governments, institutions operate differently. Sure, we'd all like less government, we'd all like less tax, and that's what we do here at Nomad Capitalist. But this idea that people have in their minds, this defeatism, that I can't go from here to here because it's just going to be as bad. They're all terrible. They all suck. There's no perfect place. But if you go from California to Nevada, that's a step in the right direction. If you go then from Nevada to Puerto Rico, that's a step further in the right direction. When you go from Puerto Rico to Panama, that's a step further in the right direction. And I'm not here to tell you how big or how closely connected or how fast those increments should be. California to Nevada, hey, you're ahead of the game. I'd love to just go California right to Panama and just cut out all the stuff in the middle, but not everyone can do that. But what's important for you to realize is that, this happens all the time. I had a girl who was working for me, and she was doing freelance in Mexico, but before she did that, she worked at a school. And when she went to work at the school the first day, she was freaked out because her work permit hadn't been issued yet. So she called the government that issues work permits, and they said, they laughed at her and said, nobody here cares about you having the work permit. Just go to the job. That's the government. The government said, please, we don't care. Just go to the job and we'll send it eventually. If you're sitting in the United States, if you're sitting in one of the high tax, high regulation Western countries, especially if you're sitting in one of the high tax parts of those countries, like California, like New York, you may think that it's just all the same. It can't get any better. And what I see every day is that, there are some things you have to adapt to in every country, and that's one of the things that I work with people on, is understanding that when you go to Georgia, you're not going to get a 30% discount off the list price. The price is the price, and if you don't want to pay it, you just go on and find a property that's appropriately priced, because they don't negotiate on real estate sales for the most part. But once you figure that part out, the really winning piece is that you can actually greatly improve the quality of your life, the simplicity of your life, the amount of taxes that you pay in your life by making either incremental or just big changes and trusting that not everyone operates the way that you are used to.
I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you're looking for a way to legally reduce your taxes, build your freedom, and create wealth faster as a global citizen, then you've come to the right place. I want you to do 3 things right now. Number 1, click the button to subscribe to our channel. Make sure to get notifications so you never miss a new video. Number 2, get a copy of our #1 best-selling book, Nomad Capitalist, on Amazon, and learn all the dozens of benefits of our lifestyle. And number 3, if you're already a 6 or 7-figure entrepreneur and you want to put these strategies in place, go to nomadcapitalist.com and find out how to get some help.